The cafeteria of Interstellar Academy Station Kepler 9 was enormous. The curved walls were made of clear material that showed the stars outside. A neutron star spun in the distance, casting blue and white light across everything. Tables floated in the air, held up by gravity generators. Each table was designed differently to fit different alien species. Scaled reptilian Threnodies sat next to bird-like Corin. Blob-shaped Blorx creatures ate beside rock-like Metherians. The room was full of noise. Hundreds of students talked in their own languages. Translator devices turned all the sounds into words everyone could understand. It was like 1,000 conversations happening at once. In the farthest corner of the massive room, one table sat almost empty. It was designed for 8 people. Only one person sat there. Her name was Vixla. She was a Velcathi, an insect-like alien with 4 arms and a body covered in crystal-like plates. The plates caught the blue light from the neutron star and broke it into rainbow colors. Her eyes were compound eyes like an earth insect, made of thousands of tiny lenses. They looked like cut gems. Vixla stared down at her food. It was a gray paste that her body needed to survive. It did not taste good. Nothing at this station tasted like home. She had been at the academy for 3 weeks. Every single day had been the same. She sat alone. Everyone avoided her. A group of 3 Threnodii students walked toward her section carrying food trays. They were laughing and talking. Then one of them pointed at Vixla. They stopped walking. They turned around and walked to a different table, even though her area had more space. A pretty Corin girl with glowing patterns on her skin glanced at Vixla. Their eyes met for just a second. Then the Corin's friends pulled her away. The Corin girl looked at the floor and did not look back. Vixla heard the whispers. Her translator chip picked up the words, even when students tried to speak quietly. That is one of them. I cannot believe they let her come here. 2 years is not long enough to forgive. Millions died because of her kind. Vixla kept her eyes on her gray food. She tried to pretend the words did not hurt, but they did hurt. For her species, loneliness was not just emotional pain. It was physical pain, too. Velcathi evolved to live in hives, always surrounded by others of their kind. They felt each other's emotions like humans feel temperature. Being alone was like being burned slowly from the inside. She had been alone for 3 weeks. The pain grew worse every day. Vixla remembered arriving at the station on the transport ship. She was one of 15 young Velcathi chosen for the redemption program. The Galactic Coalition created the program as part of the peace treaty. Young Velcathi could study at coalition schools to prove their species could change, to prove they were not monsters. But everyone still treated them like monsters. The war was always there, hanging over everything like a dark cloud. Vixla had been 12 years old when it started. She was 14 when it ended. She remembered the fear. She remembered feeling the Hive Queen's pain to the mental connection all Velcathi shared. The queens were dying from a genetic disease. Without queens, the Velcathi would go extinct. They needed rare minerals found only in coalition space. They asked the coalition for help. They begged. The coalition offered to negotiate trade deals. But negotiations would take decades. The queens would die in just a few years. So the Velcathi attacked. They were desperate and afraid. They thought they had no choice. Then they met humanity. Humans were new to the coalition, barely 50 years as members. The Velcathi thought humans would be easy to defeat. They were wrong. Humans fought back with a fury that surprised everyone. They did not fight like other coalition species. They did not follow the usual rules of warfare. They were creative and unpredictable and absolutely refused to surrender. Battle after battle, humans pushed the Velcathi back. After 2 years, the Velcathi had no choice but to surrender. 17 million people died in that war. Most of them were coalition citizens. Some were Velcathi. Vixla had not killed anyone. She was too young to fight. But everyone here looked at her like she had personally murdered their families. She took another bite of the gray paste. It tasted like dust. Everything here tasted wrong, smelled wrong, felt wrong. She missed her hive. She missed feeling other Velcathi minds around her, warm and comforting. Here, she felt nothing but cold hatred. Mind if I sit? Vixlaw looked up, startled. A human boy stood next to her table. He was tall with dark hair that fell across his forehead. He wore the academy uniform that changed shape to fit any body type. He held a food tray in his hands. His name badge said Park Jinho in galactic standard letters. Vixlaw's translator needed a moment to process his informal way of speaking. The other seating areas have available space, she said carefully. She did not understand why he was here. Yeah, but the conversation looks better over here. The human boy sat down without waiting for her answer. He put his tray on the table and smiled at her. Tough crowd, huh? Jinho came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that too. Every lunch period, Vixlaw watched the cafeteria entrance. She told herself he would not come. She told herself he had realized his mistake. Humans were part of the coalition. They fought against her people in the war. He would remember that and stop coming. But every day, there he was, walking through the crowded cafeteria with his food tray, smiling that easy smile, sitting down across from her, like it was the most normal thing in the world. You learn anything cool in particle physics today? He asked on the third day. The professor explained quantum entanglement. Vixlaw said. Her mandibles clicked softly, a sign she was nervous, but his explanation was incomplete. He did not account for crystalline matrix interference. See, this is why I sit with you. Jinho pointed his fork at her. You are way smarter than me. I barely understood half that lecture. You understood more than you think, Vixlaw said quietly. I heard you answer Professor's question about wave functions. You were correct. Jinho grinned. Yeah, but I guessed. You actually know this stuff. They ate in comfortable silence for a moment. Around them, other students whispered and stared. Vixlaw felt their eyes like tiny needles on her crystalline skin. But Jinho did not seem to notice. Or maybe he noticed and did not care. On the fifth day, someone finally confronted him. Vixlaw was explaining a concept from their homework when a shadow fell across their table. She looked up and felt her entire body go cold. Scar stood there. He was a Threnodidae, a reptilian species with purple scales and a long tail. 3 other students stood behind him. All of them looked angry. Park Jinho, Scar said. His forked tongue flicked in and out, tasting the air. You bring shame to yourself. Jinho looked up from his meal. His expression was calm. Hey, Scar, what is going on? The Velcathi killed millions in the war. They attacked peaceful colonies. They murdered innocents. Scar's claws opened and closed. My clutch brother died on Mining Station 7 when they bombed it. She does not deserve mercy. Vixlaw started to stand up. She would leave. She would go back to her quarters. She did not want Jinho to suffer because of her. But Jinho made a small gesture with his hand, a stopping motion. Vixlaw froze. Vixlaw was 12 years old when the war started, Jinho said. His voice was calm but firm. She did not attack anyone. She did not bomb anything. She was a child on her homeworld, probably scared and confused, just like every other kid during a war. Her people, Scar began, are not her, Jinho interrupted. He stood up now, meeting Scar's eyes. Do we punish children for what their parents did? Do we blame kids for mistakes they did not make? Because if we do, then I have a lot of questions about how justice works in this galaxy. Scar's tail whipped back and forth. You defend the indefensible. No, I defend a person who did nothing wrong except be born Velcathi. Jinho's voice got a little harder. Your anger at the Velcathi military? That is valid. Your grief for your brother? I am truly sorry he died. That is terrible and unfair. But taking your anger out on a student who had nothing to do with it? That is just bullying. You are just being mean to someone weaker than you. The cafeteria had gone completely silent. Hundreds of students watched them. Vixlaw felt like she could not breathe. Her 4 hands trembled. Scar stared at Jinho for a long moment. His scales shifted darker, almost black. Then he turned and walked away. His 3 friends followed him. The noise in the cafeteria slowly returned. Students went back to their meals and conversations. But Vixla saw many of them still glancing over at their table. Jinho sat back down. He picked up his fork and continued eating like nothing had happened. Sorry about that. Where were we? Right, you were explaining the homework problem about quantum tunneling. Vixla's voice came out as a whisper. You did not have to do that. Yeah, I did, Jinho said simply. He looked at her and smiled. That is what friends do. Friends. The word echoed in Vixla's mind. She had not had a friend since coming to the academy. She had not had a friend in years, not since the war started and her people became outcasts. The constant pain of loneliness, the burning ache that lived in her chest every moment of every day, suddenly felt a little bit lighter. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Vixla and Jinho were eating lunch as usual. Vixla was starting to relax, to feel like maybe this would continue. Then she saw a Koran girl approaching their table. The Koran had blue skin with patterns that glowed softly. She carried a food tray and looked nervous. May I sit here? The Koran asked. Her voice was musical, like water flowing over rocks. Jinho gestured to the empty seats. Of course. The more people, the better. The Koran girl sat down carefully. My name is Bluish. I am in your quantum mechanics class, she said to Vixla. I heard what happened with Scar. That was brave of you both. Vixla did not know what to say. She just nodded. The next day, another human joined them. A girl named Kimnari who was small and quiet. She studied xenobiology. She did not ask permission. She just sat down, nodded at everyone, and opened her textbook to study while she ate. By the end of the week, for people sat at the table that once held only Vixla. The table designed for 8 was starting to fill up. Vixla stared at her datapad. The screen showed her test results in bright red numbers. 42%. Failed. She had studied for days. She had reviewed all the material. She had done every practice problem. But when she sat down to take the quantum mechanics exam, nothing made sense. The equations looked like random symbols. The concepts slipped through her mind like water through her fingers. This was the 3rd failed exam. If she failed one more, she would be removed from the quantum mechanics track. If her grades dropped too low, she would lose her redemption scholarship. She would be sent home in disgrace. Her mandibles clicked rapidly, a Velcathy sign of extreme distress. Her crystalline plates dimmed to a dull gray. Hey, rough exam? Vixla looked up. Jinho slid into the seat beside her in the library. He carried his own datapad and a cup of something that steamed. Human coffee, probably. Humans drank it constantly. I am failing, Vixla said. Her translator made her voice sound flat, but inside she felt panic rising. I do not understand the material. The wave function equations make no sense to my mind. Jinho leaned over to look at her datapad. He scrolled through her test results, his expression thoughtful. Okay, so the issue is not that you're dumb. You are definitely not dumb. The issue is how they are teaching this stuff. I do not understand. Look at this. Jinho pointed at one of the problems. They are teaching quantum mechanics using pure mathematical abstractions. Just equations on a screen. No visual aids, no physical models, no hands-on examples. That teaching method works great for some species. But for others, not so much. My brain cannot process it this way, Vixla admitted. She felt ashamed. I see the equations, but they mean nothing. Just symbols with no connection to reality. Yeah, because you are a visual spatial learner. Jinho set down his coffee. Velcathy evolved in hives where you communicated through touch and light patterns, right? Your brains are wired to understand physical, 3-dimensional information. Abstract math on a flat screen is like asking a fish to climb a tree. But everyone else can do it. Everyone else has different brains. Jinho was already typing on his datapad. Humans had the same problem when we first joined the coalition. Their teaching methods did not work for us either. So, you know what we did? We changed the method. Change it how? Jinho grinned. Come with me. I have an idea. He led her to one of the Academy's maker labs. These were rooms filled with equipment for building and creating things. Bluish was already there, setting up holographic projection equipment. Nari arrived a few minutes later, carrying boxes of materials. "What is happening?" Vixla asked. "Study group," Jinho said, "but we are going to study differently." He pulled up the quantum mechanics material on a large display. Then he started building something with programmable matter. The matter was a special material that could change shape based on computer commands. In his hands, it formed into a glowing sphere. "This is a particle in superposition," Jinho explained. He manipulated the controls, and the sphere split into multiple ghost images. "See? It exists in multiple states at once until you observe it. That is what the wave function describes." Vixla stared at the glowing model. Something in her brain clicked. The abstract equation from her test suddenly made sense. The wave function was not just math. It was this physical thing she could see and almost touch. "I understand," she whispered. "Of course you do." Jinho handed her the controls. "Here, you try. Make the particle collapse into a single state." Vixla manipulated the controls with her 4 hands. The multiple ghost images collapsed into one solid sphere. The equation in her mind matched what she saw. It all made sense now. "This is how my brain works," she said, amazed. "I need to see it, to touch it, to experience it in 3 dimensions." "Exactly." Nari stepped forward with biological models she had created. "Same with these. Coalition teachers explain electron orbits with math equations. But look." She held up a physical model of an atom with the electron paths clearly visible. "This is what it actually looks like." For the next 4 hours, they studied together. Jinho built models of quantum phenomena. Bluish created holographic simulations. Nari provided biological examples. Vixla touched and manipulated and finally understood. They met every day after that. The study group became a regular thing. Slowly, Vixla's grades improved. 42% became 60%, then 75%, then 88%. On her next quantum mechanics exam, she scored 94%, the highest in class. One evening, as they were packing up the study materials, Vixla stopped. She looked at Jinho, who was carefully disassembling one of his models. "Why does your species do this?" she asked. "Do what?" "Adapt for others. Change systems to help people who are different. The galaxy says humans are stubborn warriors. But you do not act like warriors. You act like teachers, like caretakers." Jinho laughed. "Oh, we are definitely stubborn. That part is true. But here's the thing about humans." He sat down and looked at her seriously. "We do not accept that things have to be a certain way. If a system does not work, we change it. If a rule is stupid, we break it. If everyone says something is impossible, we say, 'Watch this,' and do it anyway." That sounds exhausting. "It is," Jinho admitted with a grin, "but it is also how we survive. See, humans almost destroyed ourselves. Multiple times. We fought wars over stupid things. We hated each other for dumb reasons. We made so many mistakes. But you survived. We survived because we learned to adapt. We learned that rigid thinking gets you killed. We learned that helping others makes everyone stronger, including yourself." He gestured around the Maker Lab. "The Coalition's teaching method works for most species, but not all. So instead of forcing everyone to fit the system, we change the system to fit the people." "That is a very human thing to do." "Yeah," Jinho said proudly. "Yeah, it is. We call it being unreasonably optimistic. The universe says you cannot do something, and humans say bet." Vixla's crystalline plate shimmered through colors that meant affection and gratitude in Velkathi body language. She did not know if Jinho could read the colors, but she hoped he understood anyway. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she felt like she truly belonged somewhere. The emergency alert woke everyone at 3 a.m. Vixla sat up in her bed, her translator picking up the announcement that echoed through the station speakers. "Attention all students and faculty. A coalition mining outpost has been attacked. 17 casualties confirmed. The attackers have been identified as a Velkathi extremist group. All students are advised to remain calm and stay in their quarters until further notice." Vixla felt like all the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Her people, Her species had attacked again. After 2 years of peace, after all the promises, after all the work to rebuild trust. Gone. All of it gone. She did not sleep for the rest of the night. When morning came, she opened her door to go to class. Then she stopped. Across her door, someone had painted a word in bioluminescent paint. The paint glowed bright green in the dim hallway light. The word was simple and cruel: murderer. Vixla stood frozen. She heard doors opening down the hallway, other students coming out from morning classes. They saw the word. They saw her standing there. Some looked away quickly. Others stared with open hostility. No one offered to help her clean it. She went back inside her quarters and locked the door. The news reports played constantly on every screen in the academy. The mining outpost had been on a small moon called Taros for the workers there had been processing rare minerals. The Velcathi extremists had bombed the main facility. 17 people died instantly. 3 more were in critical condition. The extremist group released a statement. They said the coalition had not kept its promises. They said the genetic plague was still killing Velcathi queens. They said violence was the only language the coalition understood. Vixla watched the reports and felt sick. She knew those arguments. She had heard them before. During the war, they were the same desperate justifications her people had used to start the fighting in the first place. And now it was happening again. She tried to go to class the next day. Students moved away from her in the hallways. In quantum mechanics, someone had written, "Go home, killer," on her usual desk. Professor Yexton did not make them clean it. He just assigned Vixla a different seat in the back corner. At lunch, she walked into the cafeteria. The normal noise died down when students saw her. Whispers followed her across the room. Bluish was at their usual table. So was Nari. But when Vixla approached, Bluish looked uncomfortable. Nari stared at her food and did not look up. "May I sit?" Vixla asked quietly. I need to go," Bluish said. She picked up her tray and left quickly. Nari hesitated. "My parents called me. They said I should not associate with Velcathi right now. I am sorry." She left too. Vixla stood alone beside the empty table. Around her, hundreds of students watched. No one spoke. No one moved to help. She turned and walked out of the cafeteria. She did not eat that day. That evening, she began to pack her belongings. She carefully folded her few clothes. She packed her data pads and study materials. She would request a transfer back to Velcathi space. She would leave before the academy expelled her. At least that way she could keep some dignity. "What are you doing?" Jinho stood in her doorway. He looked tired. His hair was messy like he had been running his hands through it. "I am leaving," Vixla said. She did not look at him. "Before I am forced to leave. Before someone gets hurt because of me." "No. Jinho, you do not understand." I said no. He stepped into her quarters and closed the door behind him. "You are not leaving. My presence here endangers everyone. The other students hate me again. Even our friends have turned away. This morning someone threw acid at me in the hallway. It missed, but next time it might not." Vixla's voice trembled. "I cannot stay where I am not wanted. You are wanted. By me. By people who actually matter." Jinho grabbed her up her 2 hands. "Running away proves them right. You stay. You fight. You show them what your people can actually be. You do not understand." Vixla pulled her hands away. Her crystalline plates flashed red, a sign of pain. Velcathi feel emotions from those around us. I feel their hatred like acid eating through my carapace. Every moment here is physical agony. I cannot breathe without feeling their disgust. I cannot walk to class without their anger burning into me. I am dying here, Jinho. Slowly, every single day. Jinho was quiet for a long moment. His expression softened. "I am sorry. I did not know it was that bad. Now you know. So you understand why I must leave." "No. I understand why we need to fix this. Fast." Jinho pulled out his datapad and started typing quickly. "My mom is a xenobiologist. She works for Earth's Genetic Research Institute. My uncle is a diplomat in the Coalition Senate. What if we gave everyone something they could not ignore? What do you mean? Proof. Real, concrete proof that cooperation works better than hatred. Jinho's fingers flew across his datapad. You told me your queens are still dying from the genetic plague, right? The Coalition's official aid program is moving too slowly. That is what the extremists are angry about. Yes, but... So, what if we propose a solution? Right now, immediately, a joint research project using human genetic engineering techniques combined with Velcathy biological knowledge. Show them that working together solves problems faster than violence ever could. Vixla stared at him. That would require years of research, thousands of hours of work. We are just students. So, we present a proposal, a proof of concept. Show the Academy Council that it is possible. Make them see that funding this research is better than funding more weapons. Jinho looked at her with intensity. Make them see that you, a Velcathy student, are part of the solution, not the problem. It will not work. Maybe, probably, but it is better than giving up. Jinho smiled, that same easy smile from the first day they met. Come on. Humans are stubborn, remember? We do not accept defeat. Are you with me? Vixla looked at her packed belongings, then at Jinho, then at the door with murderer still glowing on the outside. She unpacked her datapad. Yes, she said, I am with you. They worked for 3 weeks straight. Vixla barely slept. Jinho brought her food because she forgot to eat. They turned Jinho's quarters into a research lab, covering every wall with holographic displays and data streams. Nari came back on the 4th day. She stood in the doorway, looking ashamed. I am sorry I left. My parents were scared, but that is not an excuse. Can I help? Jinho handed her a datapad without a word. Nari got to work. Bluish returned 2 days later. She brought biological data from core and medical archives. My people suffered a similar plague 300 years ago, she explained. This might help. The 4 of them worked like they were racing against time, because they were. Every day, more protests happened outside the academy. Angry crowds demanded all Velcathy students be expelled. Some called for worse. Vixla modeled Velcathy genetic structures. Jinho engineered human CRISPR techniques to work with alien biology. Nari created simulations showing how the treatment would work. Bluish provided comparative data from other species who had survived genetic plagues. On the 20th day, they had something. It was not perfect. It was not complete. But it was enough to show that a cure was possible. We need to present this to the Academy Council, Jinho said. He looked exhausted. They all did. They will not listen to us, Vixla said quietly. We are just students, and I am Velcathy. Then we make them listen. Jinho sent a formal request to the council. He used his uncle's name and his mother's credentials. He called in every favor he had. 3 days later, the council agreed to hear their presentation. The auditorium was massive. Vixla stood backstage, her 4 hands shaking. Through the curtain, she could see the seats filling up. Hundreds of students, faculty members, council officials in their formal robes. Even some reporters from Galactic news services. I cannot do this, she whispered. Yes, you can. Jinho stood beside her. You are the smartest person I know. You worked harder on this than anyone. You deserve to be heard. They hate me. Some of them do. But some of them are ready to listen. You just have to give them a reason. He squeezed her shoulder. That human gesture of support she had learned meant comfort. I will be right there with you. You are not alone. The lights dimmed. A voice announced them. Vixla walked onto the stage on trembling legs. The audience was silent. Hundreds of eyes watched her. Most of those eyes were hostile. She saw Scar in the 3rd row, his scales dark with anger. She saw protesters in the back, holding signs that said things she tried not to read. But she also saw Nari and Bluish in the front row, smiling encouragement. She saw a few other students who looked curious rather than angry. She saw Professor Yexton, who nodded slightly at her. Vixla stepped up to the podium. Her voice came out steady. even though her insides felt like they were dissolving. The genetic plague-killing Velcathy queens can be cured, she said, but not by one species alone. The holographic display behind her lit up. It showed the double helix structure of Velcathy DNA alongside human DNA. Then it showed how they could be combined. Human CRISPR techniques can edit genes with precision no other species has achieved. Vixlaw continued. Velcathy genetic architecture is adaptable in ways human DNA is not. Core and biological models show us how similar plagues were defeated in the past. Together, these three elements create a possible cure. She walked them through the research. She showed simulations of how the treatment would work. She explained the science in simple terms that everyone could understand. The audience remained silent. Vixlaw could not tell if they were interested or just waiting to reject her. Then a Threnodai council member stood up. It was Elder Crixenale, one of the most respected members. "This is interesting research," he said. His voice was cold. "But I have a question. Why should we help the species that attacked us? Why should coalition resources go to curing a Velcathy plague?" Vixlaw froze. She had not prepared for that question. Her mind went blank. Then Jinho stood up from where he sat at the side of the stage. "Because that is what humans do," he said simply. Everyone turned to look at him. Jinho walked to the center of the stage, standing beside Vixlaw. "Humans got bombed in our history," he continued. "We got invaded. We got attacked by other nations, other groups, even other humans. It happened over and over. We learned something from all that pain and all those wars." He gestured to the holographic display. "We learned that revenge is expensive. Nobody wins when everyone is just trying to hurt each other back. You want to know humanity's real strength? It is not our weapons. It is not our stubbornness, though we have plenty of that." Jinho looked directly at Elder Crixenale. "It is that we believe people can change. We believe that helping others makes everyone stronger, including ourselves. We believe that peace is built through cooperation, not through making people suffer for their ancestors' mistakes." He pointed to Vixlaw. She did not attack anyone. She was a child during the war. She came here to learn, to build bridges, to prove her people can be better, and we can either punish her for crimes she did not commit, or we can work with her to solve the actual problem. The auditorium was completely silent. Elder Crixenale stared at Jinho for a long moment. Then he sat down without another word. The council voted. It took 20 minutes. Vixlaw stood on stage, barely breathing, while they deliberated. Finally, Council Leader Voram stood. "The proposal passes. By a vote of 7-5, the Academy will support this research and recommend it to the Coalition Senate for full funding." The auditorium erupted. Some people cheered. Some people shouted in anger. Reporters rushed forward with questions. But Vixlaw only saw Jinho, grinning at her like they had just won the most important victory in the galaxy. 3 months later, Vixlaw sat in the cafeteria at their usual table. It was not just the original four anymore. 6 humans had joined their group. A Matherian named CRYX who was fascinated by their research. 2 more Quarren. Even a young Threnodai named Kesvier, who was Scar's clutch sister and wanted to see for herself what the controversy was about. The table designed for 8 now needed a second table pushed next to it. "Latest update from the research team," Jinho said, sliding into his seat with his lunch tray. "They think they cracked the protein folding sequence. Really, Vixlaw's crystalline plates brightened to a happy yellow-orange. Yeah, your queens might actually be saved." He took a bite of his sandwich. "Not bad for a semester project." Vixlaw looked around the table. At Nari, who was arguing with Bluish about enzyme structures. At the new students who had joined them, talking and laughing and eating together. At Jinho, who had changed everything just by deciding to sit with someone who sat alone. "Jinho," she said quietly, "why did you approach me that first day?" "The real reason." He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled. "You looked like you needed a friend. And I figured the galaxy could use more of that. People choosing to be kind when it would be easier to be cruel. People deciding to build bridges instead of walls.